So I'm overexcited because today I got my very good friend Brandon with me, Brandon Berrigan.
Wait, start over. It's Andrew.
Well, Andrew, you are amazing for me. It's you. You are the person that embraced change. You changed your whole life. You changed so many times. You lived in Europe, working here in the armed service. Thank you for that. It's today also the day that we remember all the people that give the service, and it's amazing that you have time for me. Thank you so much. You are a fellow LSP facilitator. You are doing it in the US. And my listeners are really curious to how do you make a thriving business out of this? Because I see online, I know your stories. We talked more and before. You have a thriving business now in Lego Serious Play. And can you tell a little bit about who you are? And then afterwards, we go into the Lego Serious Play. So where did you came from? Where did your little Betty stand when you were a little kid? And how was your life evolved?
Martijn, thank you so much for the call today. Thank you for the great introduction. And thank you for remembering that this is the day that we here in the States do honor our war dead, our veterans who made the ultimate sacrifice. Today is Memorial Day that we're recording this. And I was actually chatting with one of my veteran friends earlier today who told me that she really tries to minimize work on Memorial Day because, it's all about focusing on the importance of that day.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, when we arranged this call, I'd forgotten. It was far ahead. I didn't realize it was Memorial Day. But I will say this, and I know you might not define this term in the same way in your country, but from one veteran, I consider you a veteran as well. And it's well worth my time spending time with you on this day. And I know that you understand the importance and significance of this day. It's not about us. It's not about those who lived, who tell the tale. It's not about living veterans. It is about honoring the sacrifice of all those who've given their lives, who even made it home but were wounded and died later. Mm-hmm. So that you understand that is really important to me. I will say that I have no idea how I made it into armed service myself. It wasn't the plan when I was growing up, for sure. It actually, probably like many bad stories, it started because I had reached a point in my young adult life in college where I no longer was sure that I wanted to go down the path that I was setting for myself, which would be to be assistant editor at a weekly paper, which this was, eons ago. But even then, that wasn't a very solid career move. I don't think print journalism it's not even on life support anymore. But back then, it would have been a life of poverty. And so I was kind of trying to figure out, well, what's next? The girl I was dating at the time said, hey, why don't you look at the Air Force? And so I joined the Air Force, and she dumped me. And that's what happened, So,
and then you went overseas.
I went overseas, and 20 years later, I had a full career, and it was my honor of my lifetime to serve. And then I actually met the woman who I would marry as a result of that. And we have a wonderful family, and things have been just fantastic. But yeah, I had no idea that's where things would go. No. It's interesting how during my time in the Air Force, specifically when I was a young officer serving in Iraq, and I had to plug in with some team members that I hadn't previously met, hadn't trained with, and take charge, actually be in charge of this little group, it really drove home how important it is to be able to function as a team, to establish a vision, to align the team members in their understanding of that vision, to get buy-in 100%, to actually share ideas and to grow and go forward in pursuit of that vision. These are all things I would later discover a method like Lego Serious Play excels at doing in a very small amount of time. Kind of wish I'd had that tool back in Iraq back then. I don't know that, quite frankly, we would have been able to get away with playing with Lego in a combat zone, but that's not the point. The point is, it's a very effective method. So when I learned about, almost by accident, Lego Serious Play after I got out of the Air Force, I thought, well, here's something that really speaks to my sensibilities as an officer, as a leader, as someone who understands how important it is to be able to bring everyone together. And I sat in many a briefing and meeting room where we had the big guy, the guy who's in charge, the colonel, the general who's sitting at the head of the table.
Yeah.
He's being briefed to by his second and third in command. There's like two or three other people at the table. They're clicking the slides. He's scanning them so quickly and he's plucking out the important information. And then he gets to this big decision point and he asks for opinions. And it's those same two or three people who say something to him every single time. Then if he asks them a challenging question, they might turn to their deputies. There's maybe two or three more people tops who will talk. And so you've got, I don't know, my math is probably off here, but what, 7, 8, 9, 10 people tops talking during this meeting. And there's like 70 people there. You
Yeah.
know, they were all doing a disservice to the big guy.
Yeah.
He wanted their input. For whatever reason, they weren't giving it. Why else would they be there? They're the experts. They're the eyes and ears on the ground. They're the ones who have expertise in areas that the leader wants to capitalize on. And so Lego Serious Play struck me as the cure to that. Here's a way to take a big meeting room filled with people who, for whatever reason, just aren't contributing. Maybe it's because they don't feel like they need to be there, or their opinions are wanted, or there's some sort of imbalance between authority or expertise, leadership. Maybe they're just not engaged, looking at their watch and going, "This is stupid. Why am I here?" Yet all of those opinions are valuable and should be known so that the leader can formulate a decision to the
Yeah.
best of his or her ability.
Yeah.
Lego Serious Play gives you all that. So as you can tell, I'm kind of a geek when it comes to this stuff. I think the question was, how did I get started with it? How did I get
Yeah.
here? And
Get here.
I told you, it just sort of happened, right? I
It
you
didn't happen. You didn't stumble into a meeting room that was the wrong meeting room and they let you sit there for 4 days, right?
that's not how it okay, that's not how it happened. But there are a series of steps that I took, which
Yeah.
only looking backward can I plot them as the steps toward that X that marks the spot in the treasure map. I had no idea where I was going when I was taking those steps, but I was enjoying the journey and I was making discoveries along the way. So at some point, a couple years into my post Air Force life, I was running a science, tech, engineering, art, and math, or STEAM based program provider for children, a
Yeah.
franchise that had a catalog of 80 plus programs to stimulate children's education in a fun manner. Many of these programs involved the use of Lego as an educational medium. It was through this experience that I learned how effective Lego could be as a teaching tool, but it also was through this experience that I learned about the existence of Lego Serious Play. This eventually interested me enough that when I learned of a nearby class being offered to learn more about the method, I jumped on it. I took it and I started a brand new business all around it without really know what I was going to be doing yet. I thought, this is so cool. I have to use this in my business. That was in 2022. Now, 2025, I no longer have the franchise business. I'm dedicated exclusively to my play-based facilitation business, my play-based speaking business. Lego Serious Play is a very important component of that. It
Yeah.
is the cornerstone of what I do when I'm working with small groups, with teams from, say, around 6 to 17 or maybe 20 people tops, unless sometimes more than that, but I'll usually have to get outside help.
Yeah.
But it's also a very important component of my work when I speak to larger audiences, 20, 30, 40, 50, perhaps in the hundreds, maybe even more
Wow.
than that.
Yeah.
Because another lesson I've learned, and this is something that I kind of learned back in my military days, and I've seen it exists here on the outside too, that people can lose interest and engagement. Their tank kind of empties even when they're getting some of the most valuable educational presentations. So they're not getting as much as they can out of it. What we would call that in the Air Force was death by PowerPoint. If
Yeah.
you're attending a conference or a retreat or some kind of multi-day event where there's a lot of great industry-specific information that you're there to soak up so that you can get smarter and better and have all the latest tools, maybe you are revved and ready to go in that first session. Maybe by the second or third session, you're still really interested. But maybe by the fourth session after lunch, you're kind of depleted. You got that after lunch coma setting in. Then by
Yeah.
the end of the day, you are spent. And
And
so
it is also
your
a
tank
part,
is going down. Go ahead. What was that?
I think it's also a part of that your drive is full. If you have so much energy getting in, and I think that's the beautiful part of Lego as well. It makes it so sensory rich. It burns up a new way of your brain firing your synapses, a new firing again. So yeah, I can imagine totally. It's maybe not that they're like disengaged, but they cannot keep up, I think, almost anymore. But sorry to interrupt you, but
No,
I
that's a
think,
great observation. It's kind of funny how your drive can get filled
yeah,
as your tank depletes.
yeah,
So by the end of the day, you're spent.
yeah,
If there are after hours events, opportunities to network and plug in with other people, other industry luminaries who have attended and start forming those connections, those all important business connections, you're not going to be able to put your best foot forward. In fact, you might be retreating back to your room. Maybe
yeah,
you're just, I can't take any more of this. And then there's like another day or two of the conference left. And how much are you going to be able to actually participate?
yeah,
So when you have something like Lego Serious Play, and you have these play-based methodologies, that kind of flips that entire scenario on its head because you're firing your neurons and making new connections inside of your brain, as you were alluding to. Now your drive is bigger. Now you've got more space to fill, kind of.
mhm,
And your tank stops draining. In fact, your tank may even get filled a little bit. One of the reasons I think Lego Serious Play is so effective for small team facilitation is that you can get a group of people to participate and to produce at a high level for hours on end, even days on end. You take almost any other methodology, and folks are going to get winded mentally and emotionally after a certain point. Now, no one can go forever, but I've noticed that with Lego Serious Play, people go a lot longer at a high level of production and creativity.
yeah,
So you take something like that and you infuse it into a conference type scenario where you're asking folks, attendees, to be able to plug in and listen and learn and exchange ideas for hours, even days. You give them that reprieve where you introduce something fun, but also enlightening and thought provoking. And that helps them rejuvenate so that they can participate in the conference. It becomes a much better overall elevated experience for themselves and others. They're continuing to interact with others, to share ideas, to learn things. They're getting more out of the entire experience, all because I bring something that
yeah.
they can thrive off of.
So
That's just such an awesome, great feeling to be able to give that to others.
so you do a lot of conferences now, and do you do also still workshops, or is it just you have others to do that now?
I'll say right now, I'm kind of doing both. I think I probably do more conferences and speaking engagements than I'm doing workshops, but I also think it depends on how you define them. So let's talk a bit about how you market your business if you're trying to use Lego Serious Play as a component of it. As I'm sure you understand, I know you understand this, and I'm sure your listeners
But my
understand.
listeners would be really curious, like, hey, if I'm going to do this course, can I make a business out of it? I
Right,
think
right.
it's
So that's
interesting
it's
insights that you have.
I think it's important to understand that Lego Serious Play is a tool.
Mhm.
It is not a tool doesn't create a business. A tool isn't your business. It can become an important part of your business. So how do you use it? How do you wrap it? How do you market it? How do you sell it? When it comes to how I've been able to grow my own business, I have learned that Lego Serious Play and similar methodologies, as I understand, you've got a very interesting and intriguing use of Lego Serious Play that incorporates other elements.
Yeah.
But whatever the case, they're all tools. And how you use them in your business really, I think, points to which direction your business will go in. So for me, for my case, I have found that taking some simple, fun, and let's call them aha generating moments of Lego Serious Play are key to building the business. Because here in the US at least, it is kind of a hard sell to tell folks, yeah, let me in. I will sit down with your board. We're going to play with Lego and you're going to have all kinds of wonderful results and your problems will be solved. That's a far leap. It's a difficult thing to get people to
In
understand.
Europe, the same thing.
No kidding, really.
Yeah, they got a busy schedule. They have really important things to do. How do you mean we're going to play with Lego? So how
A
do you
lot of,
sell that then? What do you tell them?
so, and now this is another very good point. Busy schedules. We don't have time to play with Lego. So I've found that small businesses, especially, they're in business, and I'm not talking necessarily solopreneurs. I'm talking small businesses up to a certain point, maybe sub $1 million a year revenue, maybe more than that, but a number of employees that is largely manageable by the founder. The founder is probably still managing everything by him or herself, hasn't really gone to the next level, hasn't scaled yet. Whatever the business is, let's call it wickets. They're in the business of making and selling wickets. So it is a really hard sell to come in and say, hey, I will help you make and sell wickets better. I will help you strategize on your marketing of wickets if you give me 4 hours, if you give me 8 hours, if you give me a couple of days. To the mind of that typical business owner, well, shoot, that is 4 hours, 8 hours, 2 days away from making and selling wickets, which
Yeah.
we have
And
to
maybe
do.
with the whole team.
Exactly. So that is just a bridge too far. Larger businesses are thinking strategically. Larger businesses are thinking about how to scale. Larger businesses have diversified teams and departments where they understand these are things that they need to take seriously. The problem is when you're trying to sell to a larger business, there are a lot more rungs you got to go through in order to close the deal,
Yeah.
especially when you're talking about something as weird as using play to further these ends. Some folks understand this stuff. If you talk to people in learning and development offices, they're usually a lot more open to these innovative ideas on how to solve problems and maximize personnel participation in production. However, rarely are the L&D folks the only decision makers. There's a lot of people you need to get on board. There may even be an extensive procurement process that you have to navigate that involves legal negotiations.
Yeah.
Not to say that it can't happen. It absolutely can happen. It's not for the faint of heart. And it might not be that much fun. And let's face it, a lot of us who get into this business like having fun. It speaks to us. So you can certainly do that. I don't spend most of my energies in that realm. Instead, I get energized by going in front of audiences, speaking to them and interacting with them. I mentioned earlier, a lot of it has to do with how you market your own business.
Mhm.
Well, we can call it a workshop. We can say that I facilitate a workshop. But if people are coming for my thing, and that's the primary or signature event, even if it's for a small, relatively small crowd, I think that kind of sounds like a keynote. And I think if I'm going to have people be interactive and play while I'm speaking to them, why not call that an interactive keynote?
Yeah.
That's what I do. I do interactive keynotes, which elevate experiences at conferences and similar events beyond what your typical speaker can accomplish. And that has definitely reached some interested ears. Of course, that's just the initial pitch or the vision of what I bring. Then you have to talk to them and explain what it is you're doing. But I have found that by incorporating my own personal brand, which I do get very excited about these things, and I can tell stories and relate different experiences I've had both in the Air Force and outside. to lessons that we can learn and tools we can use, such as the Lego Serious Play method, that's a great way to get inside. And once you have that captured audience attention and they're seeing you do these things and they're having these aha moments, it becomes much easier if there is that CEO in the audience or that L&D person in the audience or whoever the right person, HR director, that might be your next, workshop client, if that's what you want to call it.
Yeah.
Like, use the language that works for the people you're talking with. And so for me, if I'm doing speaking engagements, I try to stick to interactive keynotes, interactive breakout sessions.
Yeah, and it's interesting because what you're saying as well, for the if I understand it right, it's also that like Lego Serious Play is maybe hard to explain for the person that doesn't understand it, because and I think it explains it. It's so self-explanatory when you experience it. So when I remember the other day that I was with a team of 20 release train engineers, as they call it in SAFe. It's a way of working in Agile. And I asked them to build a duck of Lego. And then, of course, all 20 build a different duck. Well, except one. He was cheating. He was looking to the other one. And I asked him afterwards, is this what you always do? And he goes like, yeah, I always cheat. But the rest is saying had a different duck. And I asked them, so is this also how you do in this one company, your agile way of working? And they looked at me like, huh? And that elicits straight away like almost a 20-minute discussion. Of course, it's okay to do slightly different. It's still a duck. It's still, and then they had this whole discussion. And then I said afterwards, would it be valuable with just 6 bricks to have a 20 minutes discussion? And they all went like, oh, wow. And that's, I think, what you have in that keynote as well, that they go like, oh, I get it now. So much more than all the theory that you and I could tell in a vlog. It's like also experience almost, right?
That's it. That is it in a nutshell. Because if you've got a room of folks going through this with you as you're guiding this presentation, this interactive, as I call it, interactive keynote, interactive breakout session, everyone is having their own unique experience, their own unique interpretation of what's happening. There are going to be different ahas throughout the room.
Yeah.
My first time doing something like this was for a relatively small group at a conference, 17 people. One of those people, and I have this recorded on microphone, one of these people said, I've been to all kinds of conferences, all kinds of events, and I believe she even helps plan some of these events. And you look for those experiences that a few months later you're going to remember, those ones that really define the one or two things. And she said, my breakout session was that. And it was the very first session of the conference. And she was willing to say that. So for her, it really struck a chord. It really hit home. That's the kind of progress you want to make with a potential client before you even get to that discovery call.
Yeah.
You don't want to have to get tied up with explaining your thing. If they can already have an understanding of it, that's, you're in, right? Okay, I love this. I love what you have. I love you. How do we get you to help us?
Yeah.
That's a much easier conversation to have.
It's an easy sell. When they start saying, I love you, I want you.
It's so crucial because you're in a crowded marketplace of ideas. A lot of folks are trying to sell different solutions to various problems.
Yeah.
Not all will feel like they're the right fit for any given organization. So if you've already climbed over that obstacle and the person in the room is thinking, I love this, this would be perfect for my group, that's exactly where you want to be. It is an easier sell, but you've already checked the box on this is something which will work for my team. This is something that can help us. So you don't have to worry about, was this the wrong fit? Lego Serious Play isn't the right fit for everybody. Some folks aren't going to have the patience for it. Some folks aren't going to be willing to try something different. It isn't.
Yeah, but as I always say, sometimes you have a leader / a manager that knows that he is the smartest person in the room. And I always have to think what my grandma used to say. if you are the smartest person in the room, you're probably the only one, and it starts to smell. So you better get out of that little room in the room. And I think she was right. You're never the, but if you are the smartest person, it's not there. I think you said it really correctly. For us Europeans, really politically correct. But especially in the agile world, there's a lot of people that come and tell that they can help in the transformation of the organization. And one Scrum Master is not the other Scrum Master. And just by getting your papers and you pass the exam, or maybe somebody else passed the exam for you, it doesn't mean that you are a good Scrum Master. And I think this is not the tool that can solve every problem. Well, it can solve all the problems, but it's not a tool that you always want to use. What I always say in Lego Series Play, and I'm curious to do it afterwards with you as well, I always say that it's like a crowbar. It opens up doors that want to stay locked. It brings out the elephant in the room. And for me, I was wondering, if you had to explain in your keynote or in your presentation or in a workshop, what is for you the power? As you mentioned, oh man, I wanted to have used it in the Air Force as well. But what is for you the uniqueness, the power of Lego Series Play? Why is it so valuable for clients that they want to pay for it? That you start playing with their people. You're gonna play for 8 hours or maybe 2 days. Why is it so powerful? Why is it so valuable?
We don't have enough time to go into all that, but I will tell you one story which I think does encapsulate one of those reasons. Yeah. This was just about 2 weeks ago when I was delivering an interactive keynote for an association in Texas. This is a professional association, and the members, many of them, knew each other very well. I was there, believe it or not, to help them level up their networking game. They're already pretty good at networking because they knew each other and they spent time professionally with each other. But I was there to help them do more. And a lot of that has to do with authenticity of relationships, genuineness of relationships, being able to get to know each other and themselves better, and exploring the new opportunities and ideas that can come of that. At one of the tables during this presentation, I wandered over because they were doing their building and sharing, and I'm just trying to hear and enjoy and absorb some of what's happening. So I learned that one lady sitting next to another, these are two people who know each other well, they had started building some things and sharing some things with each other, using some principles of Lego Series Play. And understand, this is a brief session I'm doing with them, only about an hour. So I'm introducing some of these elements in a very slapdash quick format, and yet they're still accessible to these people. Well, they got to know each other so much better through this little interaction, this building and sharing exercise. Two people who already knew each other well. One learned, the other one hosts a podcast. And after they discussed it a bit more and talked about their own mutual interests and disinterests, came up with the potential idea of doing a podcast together on the beach. Wow, right? Where does that even come from? It never entered their minds the entire time they knew each other. Yeah. But as a result of this very brief interaction involving building and sharing, involving taking ideas, imbuing them into a model, explaining them to others, and then sharing them at a table where others can hear, we now have an innovative idea for a setting for a podcast that, listen, I didn't know these two ladies, but the idea of a podcast on the beach sounds like the most chill, relaxing sort of thing. Can you imagine the wonderful and amazing conversations they might have? And when I learned what their professions were, one actually does sales for, I think, the largest sports stadium in the entire state of Texas.
Wow.
I think the other one was a sales for perhaps a hotel company. I'd have to go back and check again on that one. But their experiences, the high-level clients they've dealt with, the events that each of them have seen in their venues, the stories they could tell, but couched in this relaxed, on the beach, just loving life kind of atmosphere. I don't know if they're actually going to do that podcast, but if they do, sign me up. I want to listen to it. I can't even imagine the amazing insights that must come out. So that one story tells me why, one of the many reasons why this is such an impressive method. You can let it just loose, even on people who are already part of a functioning team, even on people who already know each other well, and you can produce new, compelling ideas which translate into opportunities
Yeah.
in practically the blink of an eye.
Yeah, and for me, super interesting. It's what I have here. It's you ask a question, they start to build, and then the most important thing, they start to share what we do now as well. But what I enjoy is that I don't know if you didn't do it on purpose. Of course, we didn't discuss this before. But then we have this in the system that I explained to facilitators. You try to identify what is new, like this magnifying glass is there as well. You try to something new, and that's super interesting. It's something also you want to learn, to compare and to contrast, but also to integrate. It doesn't have to be all the time, but it influences all new kinds of decision. And this is just a thing that I pulled out in the way that that is what you need to learn as a facilitator as well. How was that journey for you to learn this? Because now it looks, sorry that I'm so bold, but you make it look so easy. It's like, oh, I just get some Lego. People talk. They get brilliant new ideas, like making vlogs or podcasts on the beach, and have this. You can see this two ladies already integrating this whole new business for them as well, and finding each other. And you make it look so easy. Thank you for that. But was it that easy? Is it that easy? Is it how was
That's a great question. And let me say, they identify the new, such an important component of your process. We need to pause and actually reflect upon what those new ideas are and capture them and remember them, because they can get lost in everything else. So I love that you pointed that out specifically. When you talk about you make it so easy, that is a problem, I think, that facilitators run into when they're doing their jobs really well, right?
Yeah.
I think that's also why it can be beneficial to work with a large group where you are in front of the room and you're speaking to them. As facilitators, we kind of want to fade into the background, right? We want to let the process take over. We're there to set the conditions, and we want to get out of the way so the team can produce. The problem with that approach is not for the team. The problem is for us. We need them to realize that we really have set the tone, set the conditions, have arranged everything so that that can happen, so that it does appear to be as easy as pie.
Yeah, it
If
looks like
you
play. It looks like play with
exactly, right?
Lego all day. What did you do? Play with Lego all day. I'm like, no, you did so much more than that.
Exactly. But that you cannot undervalue the role of a facilitator in that setup.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you can't impart some great tools that people can't use on their own. They absolutely can. But when you're looking for really ramped up creativity, innovation, sharing, and production, that's a facilitated process.
Yeah.
But if you're fading into the background, then people don't always associate that. They're thinking, well, yeah, we kind of all did this, and you're just there.
Yeah.
There's something, I think, psychological that happens. And I really hadn't thought about this until you brought it up. So great question. But if you are in front of the audience, you're presenting to them, you can still walk among them and, kind of put your ear towards the crowd and hear what they're saying, and offer little pointers here and there. Do that facilitation among them in that intimate style. But when you're setting a tone by presenting to them and capturing their attention and their imagination in the "I've got you, I'm on the stage, you're in the audience" kind of manner, it conveys authority.
Yeah.
It's easier to associate that we did these amazing things because the speaker, the facilitator, whatever you want to call yourself, was there helping us get there.
Yeah, it's a good point. We as facilitator, if we do a team and not do a keynote, we also have to think about how do you make this that they remember that you also arranged it, right? Otherwise, It's true. I hear from some facilitators in that point of view that the people walk away and they said, "Oh, that was really fun. We played all day," but they don't realize that in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks they will refer to the models that they built, and actually they keep doing that because of that facilitator. In the training that I give to the people, if you do, we have this 3-pillar thing. You get first an e-learning so that you get the theory, so that in the 4 days that we do the training, you have 4 days also to facilitate, and there's a part in also how can you sell it, and some of your ideas that we talked in the past about are in there as well. How do you promote yourself, but also how can you get this longing, and how can you keep this value in it? And it's a difficult, it's a challenging thing, and you do it so easily. Was it always easy for you to facilitate, or did you made in the beginning also some mistakes and that you go like, if I look
I
back to it,
continuously make mistakes. Okay.
oh
It
really?
happens all
Still?
the time.
I
I
thought
think
you were Mr. Perfect.
well, that's I know you're not being serious there. Because you know that no one's perfect, and especially not me. I think the key in facilitation and in other areas of life is that unless you're a really good actor or a really good liar, you just need to be transparent.
Yeah,
If there is a mistake or something which was unintended or unforeseen, don't try to brush over it. Don't try to cover it up. Say, look, this is what I was planning to happen. This is what was supposed to happen. It didn't. We're going to press on. And whatever the best avenue is for you to take that journey. Obviously, you don't want to destroy your credibility with your client, but things happen and they deserve to know. I had a workshop I was doing early on in my career. I was one of 2 facilitators. Someone at my workshop kind of asked me, because all of a sudden the whole thing had come to a halt. Said, "Hey, looks like you guys have lost control of what's going on." And I said, and I was transparent. I said, "Well, something emerged in the workshop that was not on the roadmap. And now we are communicating real time because this is so important. We need to address this.
yeah,
So appreciate the question. We're going to be back." And she really appreciated that.
yeah,
It was very human. It was, here we are actually being people and rolling with the punches and facilitating this ongoing process. This brings me back to my point that I spoke about earlier, which is that Lego Serious Play is a tool. All these things, whether it's agile or anything else, these are tools. You do not, if you want to be successful, in my opinion, you do not sell the tool.
yeah,
You sell the artisan who uses the tool or the tools. Because if it's just the tool, well, then what do I need you for? If it's just the tool, then it all should work just like this. A robot can do it, right? So if there's things that are confusing or it appears that you made a mistake, that means you're bad at using the tool. No. Artists smudge paint. Artists will rebuild and rebuild and resculpt their statues. Artists improvise. Artists have creative inspiration in the middle of their work and will go in a new direction.
yeah,
We're the artisans with the tools. So if you want to be, as a facilitator, as someone who is perhaps listening to this podcast and wondering, should I get trained in this method? How can I use this method to build a business, to attract clients? The method is only one component of the tools you bring. The biggest component, in my opinion, has to be you. It
yeah.
is, you need to go with me because of my personality, because of the way that I use all these tools to improve your life, to improve your team's life, to improve your organization situation.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you're eventually going to work yourself out of a job.
exactly. And at the same time, I believe also that Lego Serious Play is a tool, and it's a different kind of facilitation as well, right? It's like it's not your standard sticky notes on the wall and this is what you always did. You sometimes think of a roadmap and that doesn't work out, and I always believe that is okay. As you said as well, that's okay. Just embrace it and say, hey, this is what's happening. Create a transparency, what we all believe in as agile people. And it's also, it didn't come for nothing there. I always have to think about this great actor who said, use what happens. So if there's a door stocked in where you have to walk through, then use it. Then don't start screaming around or something, but use it as like that it is part of the scene. And I always think, oh, this is interesting. Why is this happening? And then somehow there's also something emerging that is also correlating to that team. So I always think it's how do you apply this stuff, and how do you integrate the mistakes in this same thing? Because I'm pretty sure, well, all the teams I worked with also sometimes got stuck. And how did they resolve it? And how do they? And what can we learn from it? And that's, I think, an amazing thing of the pendula of facilitation, where we say, hey, sometimes you are messaging something, and sometimes you're more on that coach side. It's all the time this swing that goes around. It's not one static thing. And that's I loved your explanation, what you did there with it as well. For me,
I think that you already have obviously you have an inherent understanding of these principles in your own business. And I think that most people who are successful with these tools will develop that understanding, because otherwise, and I'm just restating what I've already said, but you can learn the techniques.
that's
You can
easy.
get practiced at them. You
It's
can
this
get
flip
good at
chart.
them.
If you know this one, it's done.
Right. But that's what separates the, oh wow, yeah, it's so easy. We didn't even need a facilitator there. It's just everyone followed the steps. What separates that crowd from the, wow, did you work with Martijn? Did you work with Andrew? He really brought something out of us.
Yeah.
It's incorporating that human element. It's being able to make decisions, kind of like back in the Air Force, where you study doctrine, you study techniques, tactics, and procedures. You've got a whole encyclopedia of knowledge in not just your head, but in the collective minds of your crew.
Yeah.
But then you still need to make those decisions and use all that knowledge and use your own gut instinct and
Yeah.
just use everything that makes you you, incorporating all that into your marketing, into your sales, and into your actual execution of your workshops, of your speaking engagements, or however it is you package what you do.
Yeah.
That's what separates you apart. That's what keeps you from being just one of many people who can do this thing to, no, this is the guy we're going with.
Yeah.
This is the
Exactly.
person who gets us. This is the person who has the right mix that I know they can solve our problems. Yeah, you can go ahead and chase credentials all you want. You can get all the different letters after your name and study all the different methods. All right, now put it to work and make it part of who you are and your brand.
Make it real. Yeah. So, Andrew, thank you so much. You are a true artisan in your way of working with it. I love it that you lift this whole LSP up also towards that keynote thing, getting bigger groups involved, getting them. Oh, this is important. Thank you for that great work that you do. Thank you for this super good insight that you give us. And I really take with me that artisan thing, but I also take with me, try to let that group experience what Lego Serious Play is, and then the sale of a workshop is afterwards evident. It's not a question, it's just a planning moment only. I really enjoy that. And if you have to give, not only for Memorial Day, but in general, if you have to give us one more advice, because otherwise we cannot sleep tonight, what would it be?
Since you brought up Memorial Day again, I've been thinking about this today. So this bears remembering, I think, no matter what day of the year, there are three purposes I've been able to isolate, and I speak only for myself, not for anyone else, but three purposes that we celebrate Memorial Day in the United States. In the order that I would list them, first and foremost is to honor those who died in conflict or as a result of wounds, whether mental, whether physical, that they suffered as a result of conflict. Number two would be to honor all those who have served and who have died. And there are a great many who serve their country, give what was asked of them, make sacrifices, albeit not the ultimate sacrifice, and then return to civilian life and live long lives, and then, like we all must, pass away. But their sacrifices deserve remembering and honoring as well.
They do.
The third purpose would be to honor all of those people's sacrifices by enjoying the freedoms, the beauty, and the joys that your country gives you, all secured by those veterans. And passing on the significance, in my case, of Memorial Day, but this would apply anywhere that you honor your nation's veterans, passing on why that's an important thing to your children, to your friends, not letting it die on the vine.
Thank you. You are a true master in storytelling. You are a true friend. And thank you for all your service that you give to us. You make my day every time I speak to you a little bit brighter. And with that, you help my mission in the world, make the world a bit brighter than it's today. Thank you so much, Andrew.
Thank you, Martijn, for giving me the time today. I enjoyed it. Let's not wait so long to do this again, okay?